Have you ever wondered why the best people so often seem to be born into the worst families? Why the deepest souls are forced to grow up in environments filled with shouting, tears, and a silence so cold it hardens the heart? If you've ever lain awake at night, staring at the ceiling, asking yourself why you had to endure all of this, what you did wrong, then this video is for you. Because the truth is, many people enter this world with sensitive hearts, easily wounded, deeply capable of understanding others. And yet, they are the very ones who grow up in the most chaotic families. Not because they are weak, but because they carry something their family never learned how to face, an inner light. Before you could ever understand that, you had to walk through familiar pains that almost all of us know. Being compared, being dismissed, being loved conditionally instead of being loved for who you are. You had to grow up too fast, becoming an adult inside your own home. And perhaps the most painful part wasn't the harsh words, but the feeling of being unseen. In this video, we will explore the deeper reasons why so many sensitive-hearted people are born into families like this. Not to place blame, not to justify the pain, but to help you understand your true role within a cycle that has trapped generations. If you're still asking yourself, why me? Why did I have to grow up this way? Is life testing me? Stay until the end. You're about to understand something that may completely change how you look back on your childhood and help you see that what you went through was not meaningless. There is a truth many people avoid facing. Sometimes, the most sensitive souls grow up in places where sensitivity has no room to exist. You may have experienced childhood as if you were walking across shattered glass. One wrong step and you'd bleed. From the outside, nothing seemed unusual, but you knew what it felt like to hold your breath just to survive each day, to anticipate the moods of everyone in the house so you could avoid being yelled at, blamed, or disappointing someone. At an age when you should have been held and protected, you became the guardian of your family's fragile, artificial peace. I once heard someone describe his childhood as trying to keep a candle lit in a violent wind. Every time the flame began to glow, someone in the family would blow it out, with coldness, with criticism, with endless arguments. And yet, strangely enough, the more times the flame was extinguished, the more stubborn the light inside him became. It refused to die. It simply learned how to burn quietly, discreetly. That quiet endurance later became a strength he never expected. Many people like you lived this way, growing up not with the clear warmth of love, but with a silent survival instinct. You see what others don't. You sense the smallest shifts in the emotional air. You can read people's feelings even when they say nothing. Not because you were born knowing everything, but because your environment forced you to become perceptive to survive. A toxic family doesn't teach you how to love, but it unintentionally teaches you how to see through falsehoods, how to recognize what others hide behind their masks. Yet, the deepest pain for many isn't the yelling or neglect. It's the feeling that you have to hide every soft part of yourself, as if every time you wanted to cry, someone stood behind you saying, "Don't be weak." Every time you needed a hug, someone reminded you, "Handle it yourself." It'd say, at some point, you learned to keep everything inside, and you thought that was normal. You didn't know that other children grew up with trust, while you grew up guarded. And then one day, you realized you were different from those around you. Not better, but deeper. Those painful experiences placed a different pair of eyes in your hands. Eyes that no longer trust calm surfaces, but instinctively search for roots. Your life doesn't move across the surface, it moves through depth. And that depth began exactly where you once thought you were weakest. Even now, you may not understand why you were born into your family, why you had to endure what you did, but what you went through didn't shrink you. It has been quietly shaping someone you never believed you could become. Like a seed pushing through a crack in stone, the tightness forced your roots to grow deeper than most. And as you begin to look back with more mature eyes, a question starts to emerge behind every experience. Was all of this preparing me for something greater? there is something that people who grow up in toxic families often don't realize. The distorted way they were loved as children opens a door to deeply understanding the true nature of love later in life. When you grow up in an environment where love is mixed with control, with pain, with prolonged silence, you quickly learn that love isn't just what people say. It lives in how they look at you, how they treat you, how they respect or fail to respect your existence. Many people only realize as adults that they don't actually know what real love looks like, not because they've never loved, but because they were taught a distorted version of love from childhood. Some were loved conditionally, be good, then you're loved. Some were held captive by fear, disobey, and you'll be abandoned. Some were frozen in silence, cold days without hugs, without questions, without warmth. Only a thick distance between people living under the same roof. And those fractures force them to search for an answer to a deeper question. What is real love when it isn't mixed with pain? This is a question people raised in emotional abundance rarely have to face. They simply inherit the model of love passed down to them. They don't question it, but you do. The old model collapsed right in front of you, and you were forced to rebuild from the ground up. There was once a woman who said that, even as an adult, she never knew what it felt like to be loved without being afraid of disappointing someone else. Whenever someone was kind to her, she immediately worried that she would do something wrong and be abandoned. It took her many years to understand that she wasn't afraid of love itself. She was afraid of reliving her childhood. Every time she showed her true emotions back then, the response was always coldness or anger. That realization changed the way she saw the world. She began to understand that love isn't about trying to be perfect so you'll be accepted. Love is about being seen, being heard, being allowed to be yourself without fear. People who grow up in pain often have to figure out love on their own. They don't trust empty definitions or pretty words. They observe, experience, make mistakes, fall, and stand back up. They learn that sweetness can hide in the smallest, most unexpected places. A simple text message, a gentle hand on the shoulder, a caring question when the mind is overwhelmed. They learn to recognize beauty in small things because, in childhood, they didn't have them. And through that searching, they become deeper. Not the kind of depth that shows off intelligence, but the kind that understands life through feeling, through a heart that has been cracked open. You are the same. Your sensitivity is not a gift that fell from the sky. It was forged in moments when you had nothing left to hold on to except yourself. When those closest to you didn't see you, you were forced to see yourself. When no one listened to you, you had to learn how to listen inward. Awareness doesn't come from peaceful meditation sessions or calm pages in books. It comes from nights when you wanted to cry but had to stay silent. It comes from moments when you smiled through a heart that was breaking. It comes from repeatedly asking yourself what love is supposed to look like. Every time you see the shallow version of love you once received, those born into chaotic families often carry a pain that's hard to name. The pain of having to define love without anyone teaching them how. And yet, from that very place, they develop the ability to tell the difference between real love and something that only looks like it. Because of that, they can build kinder, healthier, more conscious relationships later in life. Not because they were lucky, but because they walked a path many people never have to walk. Toxic families often come from generations of unresolved pain, and you may be the first person in your bloodline awake enough to break that cycle. There's something many people only realize once they're older. Family pain rarely begins with our generation. It's like an underground current flowing through many lifetimes, carrying exhaustion, fear, and wounds our parents never learned how to name. Growing up in a toxic family, it's easy to believe that this only happened to you, that you were the only one who suffered. But when you look more closely, you begin to see that the traces of pain existed long before you were born. Your parents didn't become people who hurt you overnight. They were once children too. Children who longed to be loved in ways they never received. Life wore them down, taught them to close off, taught them that love must come with control, that silence equals safety, that anger is the only way to feel alive. They brought those patterns into your family not because they wanted to hurt you, but because they truly didn't know another way. I once met a man who said his parents were cold and distant, rarely expressing affection. He blamed them for years, until one day he saw an old photograph of his grandfather, a man so severe he couldn't even look straight into the camera. In that moment, he realized his father had been raised in that same emotional coldness and was simply repeating the pattern he had endured. Not to excuse the pain, but to understand that sometimes pain is passed down simply because people don't know how to heal it themselves. When you look back at your family through more mature eyes, you may feel something even heavier than childhood memories. It can feel like you're standing in the middle of a current that's been flowing through generations, and somehow it all seems to converge on you, as if you're the one finally speaking the words no one before you could say. You are the first person willing to look directly at the repeating pattern everyone else silently endured. It's not an accident that sensitive souls are often born at the breaking point of the cycle. Those who feel deeply, understand deeply, are often the first who can no longer accept the old ways, who can't keep living as if everything is fine. They see what others have grown so used to that they no longer notice it, and it's precisely this sensitivity that makes them ask, why does this keep happening? Why doesn't it stop? Have you ever felt like you were the only one in your family who thought differently, felt differently, reacted differently? As if you were born to see what everyone else chose to ignore? That isn't alienation. It's a role. It's the timely arrival of a soul strong enough to redirect an entire current. But this role always comes with challenges. When you're the first in your family to break the cycle, you will feel alone. It can feel like you're pushing against an invisible force that's existed far longer than your lifetime. Yet within that loneliness, a deeper truth reveals itself. You're not only healing yourself, you're healing those who came before you, those who didn't have the strength or the chance to do what you're doing now. You may never receive an apology from those who hurt you, but their silence doesn't mean the pain belonged only to you. It means you were the first brave enough to step out of it. Why you and not someone else were given the chance to break this cycle, and what awaits you on the other side of healing, are questions many people ask themselves. There are moments when you look at your life and wonder why, out of dozens of people in your family, only you long for change. Why are you the only one who aches at things others have learned to tolerate? Others live calmly with old habits, old patterns, old pain, as if it's normal. But every time you witness a harmful behavior, your heart tightens, as if something is squeezing it. You can't tolerate injustice. You can't tolerate prolonged silence. And you certainly can't tolerate living the same life as the generations before you. Many people mistake this for weakness, but only those who've lived it know that this sensitivity is actually the sign of a larger role, the role of the cycle breaker. A cycle can only be broken by someone who can see it, and most people live too fast, too afraid, or too accustomed to notice anything at all. But you were different. Even as a child, you carried a vague sense that things weren't supposed to be this way. That feeling didn't come from logic. It came from a deep place within, where your soul was quietly reminding you that you didn't come here to repeat the same old story. I once heard about a woman who grew up in a family filled with constant arguments. Every time her parents fought, she felt as if an invisible blade passed through her soul. As an adult, she was determined to build a different life, but the more she avoided conflict, the more confused she became in relationships. One day, during a conversation with her partner, she suddenly fell silent when she realized she was speaking in the same way her father once spoke to her mother. That moment brought her to tears, not because she had become her father, but because she understood that wounds don't disappear just because we leave the old house. They live on in habits, in reflexes, in the unconscious ways we treat others. And it was in that moment that her true healing began. You are the same. Your awakening isn't a single burst of light. It's the moment you recognize yourself in an old behavior and quietly say, "No, I don't want to live this way anymore." That simple, silent sentence is the beginning of every transformation. Breaking a cycle is not easy. It's like standing in the middle of a long road, walked by generations before you, walked unconsciously, out of habit, out of what they were taught. And you are the first to stop, turn around, and say, "This road ends here. I'm choosing a different direction." In that moment, you feel alone. You no longer belong to the old place, but you haven't yet arrived at the new one. But that loneliness is not emptiness. It's a stillness from which a new version of you is born. Those who break cycles are the ones who feel the most, struggle the most, and hurt the most. But they are also the ones capable of loving the deepest, understanding the deepest, and creating the healthiest relationships later on. Because they know what it means to be hurt, they refuse to pass that pain on. And because they once longed for love so deeply it hurt, when they finally learn how to love well, that love becomes far more pure. When you begin to break the cycle, you're not just changing your own life. You're changing the future of people who haven't even been born yet. Those who start breaking their family's pattern of pain often think it's a private battle, something that concerns only them. But the truth is far quieter and far greater. Every step you take away from old patterns, you are silently rewriting the future for those who will come after you. No one tells you this, but your soul knows. It's like stepping out of a dark room and realizing you didn't just open the door for yourself, but for everyone standing behind you. People who never even knew a door was there. The day you realize you don't want to repeat the way your parents loved each other, the way they handled pain, or the way they poured their anger onto one another, that is the day a new path begins to form. Not a perfect path, but one you are learning how to walk step by step. And every step you take sends ripples forward into future generations, even to children who have not yet been born. Children you hope will grow up with a gentler childhood, with hearts less shaped by fear. I once met a woman who said that throughout her childhood, she constantly witnessed her father hitting her mother, and she swore she would never end up in a relationship like that. Yet when she entered adulthood, she unconsciously chose men who carried the shadow of her father. It wasn't until one night, standing alone in the dark and seeing herself trembling the same way her mother once had, that she realized the cycle had quietly woven itself into her life. That moment of facing the truth, of admitting that she was repeating what had once hurt her, became the turning point of her fate. From that day on, she began learning how to love herself, something no one had ever taught her as a child. Just like you, when you change, your life doesn't shift only for you. The future of your family changes as well. The generations before you may have lived through fear, silence, or endless conflict, but because of you, for the first time in your lineage, someone dares to say, "Enough." Someone dares to stop. Someone dares to choose a different direction. This doesn't require recognition or applause. It only requires that you understand that the steps you take today are saving the souls of tomorrow. At times, you may feel small in the shadow of your family's past, but the truth is, you are carrying the responsibility of many generations, not as a burden, but as an inheritance. The inheritance of a heart strong enough to stop pain from being passed on. You are the first to recognize the pattern, the first brave enough to ask the questions others avoid, the first willing to feel the pain so it can finally end. That alone makes you more different than you realize. The beauty of this process is that you are not only healing the family of memory, you are healing the family of the future. A child born from your awareness will not have to learn how to survive the way you did. They will not grow up shaped by fear. They won't have to shrink themselves to avoid being hurt. They won't carry the weight of multiple generations. They will live in the softness you once longed for. And that is proof that the path you are walking is not meaningless. The pain caused by family is real, so real it can shape an entire lifetime. But at the same time, it gives you the ability to see yourself more clearly than most people ever will. There is something you only understand once you grow older. Family pain is real, but what it leaves behind is more than wounds. It opens a way of seeing that not everyone has access to. Some people grow up peacefully and enter life with a lightness you once wished for. Yet often, they cannot reach the darker corners of the human heart, where the hardest questions and deepest wounds live. You, on the other hand, may not be proud of your past, but you understand territories others only dare to observe from a distance. Your childhood was like standing in front of a mirror whose reflection warped with every argument, every cold glance, every word that forced you to swallow your feelings and store them away. Years later, when you looked at yourself again, you realized that the mirror had prevented you from seeing who you truly were. You learned to doubt your worth, constantly asking whether you deserved to be loved or whether you had to keep proving yourself just to be accepted. But one day, when your heart becomes strong enough to face the truth, you will see that what you once believed was your weakness was actually the doorway back to your true self. I once heard about a man who always believed he was too sensitive. Whenever someone spoke harshly, he felt it more deeply than others. Whenever he sensed someone else's sadness, he carried it inside himself. He saw this as a burden, until the day he met a friend who was quietly sinking into crisis while no one else noticed. Only he saw the silent plea for help behind that forced smile. In that moment, he understood for the first time that the sensitivity he had rejected was the very thing that allowed him to perceive what others couldn't. You are similar. Your sensitivity doesn't make you weak. It is an antenna that lets you experience life at a depth others never reach. You hear what isn't said. You sense the smallest shifts in tone, in eyes, in presence. You know when someone is hiding sadness. You know when someone is fighting themselves. No one taught you this. Your childhood did, and even though you never asked for it, it became part of who you are. Strangely enough, the more you understand your own pain, the more clearly you see human nature as a whole. You begin to understand why your parents behaved the way they did, not to excuse them, but to see them as wounded humans rather than intentional sources of harm. When someone understands the pain behind behavior, they no longer want revenge. They only want the pain to stop passing on. And that is the most important shift of all. Something very natural begins to happen. You no longer want to live unconsciously the way previous generations did. You don't want to love in a way that suffocates someone. You don't want silence to kill what needs to be spoken. You don't want to repeat a form of love that once kept you awake at night. You want something different, gentler, more mature, more real. And from there, you begin to truly see yourself. Not the distorted reflection shaped by childhood, but the person you are becoming. Strong in a quiet way, resilient without noise, deep without needing to prove anything to anyone. True awakening is not about forcing forgiveness or suppressing anger. It is about seeing things exactly as they are and letting go of what no longer belongs to you. There comes a moment in adulthood when you realize that awakening is not about sitting there trying to forgive those who hurt you, nor is it about performing calmness to prove you've moved on. Awakening is simply the moment you see reality as it is, without denial, without distortion, without decoration. You quietly accept the truth. Some things are not meant for you, and some people cannot walk with you to the end of the road. That truth usually arrives softly, not in rage or confrontation, but on an ordinary afternoon, when you suddenly understand that holding on to a relationship broken at its root only causes you more pain. It arrives when you look into someone's eyes and realize they are incapable of loving you in the way you need, not because they are bad, but because they were never loved that way themselves. And in that moment, you know you are no longer responsible for trying to heal them. When you truly awaken, anger loses its grip, not because you forget what happened, but because you no longer want to carry it as part of who you are. Anger is like a heavy object you once believed you had to hold to prove you were hurt. Over time, you realize that carrying it doesn't change the past or make you stronger. It only exhausts you. And when you are honest enough with yourself, you put it down, not to forgive others, but to free yourself. I once heard a woman say that for years she believed she had to forgive her mother to find peace. But one day, she realized she didn't need to force forgiveness at all. The moment she released the anger, she felt as if she had set down a heavy stone she'd been carrying unconsciously for years. Letting go is not abandonment, and it is not turning your back. Letting go is a quiet act where you return to others the responsibility that belongs to them, and keep what belongs to you. You stop trying to be the perfect child, the perfect partner, the perfect one who endures everything just to be accepted. You step out of that role and return to yourself, the self that has always existed, but was hidden beneath family expectations, social pressure, and your own fear. And the most beautiful thing is this: when you truly let go, your heart becomes wider. Not so you can love more people, but so you can love yourself more simply. You no longer see yourself through the lens of the past. You stop letting memory decide your worth. You understand that you deserve to be loved gently, kindly, and clearly, not because you've tried hard enough, but simply because you exist. As you gradually step out from under your family's influence, you don't just learn how to love more healthily, you also learn how to set boundaries, something most sensitive souls pay a very high price to learn. There is one skill sensitive people often learn the latest and through the most pain: setting boundaries. Not boundaries with strangers, but boundaries with the people they love the most. Your childhood may have taught you that silence keeps the peace, that yielding avoids trouble, that enduring is the only way to stay safe. But as you grow older, you realize none of those things brings real peace. They only cost you small pieces of yourself. Setting boundaries is not about rejection. It's like learning how to protect your breath in strong winds. When you were young, every time someone got angry, you shrank. Every loud sound made your heart tighten. Every moment of family tension made you withdraw, as if your very existence might make things worse. And that habit followed you into adulthood. You apologize even when you're not wrong. You give in even when you're hurting. You try to please others even while you're completely exhausted inside. So boundaries begin to feel unfamiliar, even frightening. You fear that if you say no, someone will leave. If you speak the truth, someone will explode. If you protect yourself, you'll be called selfish. And because of that fear, you stay caught in relationships that drain you. Relationships where you're always the one holding everything together, while no one stops to ask whether you're standing steady or quietly shaking. I remember the story of a young man who was always the pillar of his family. Whenever someone was hurting, they came to him. Whenever someone needed help, they called him. He believed it was his duty, his responsibility, the only way to keep everything from falling apart. Over time, he realized he was carrying burdens that were never his to carry. One day, when he was so exhausted he couldn't answer another call, he understood that if he kept living this way, no matter how strong he was, he would eventually break. And in that rare moment of clarity, he chose to do something he had never dared to do before: put himself first. You may be standing at that boundary too, the boundary between living to keep others comfortable and living to preserve yourself. The more you understand yourself, the clearer it becomes that setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's self-respect. When you know you no longer have the strength, you stop. When you know someone keeps hurting you, you step back. When you recognize what's draining too much of your energy, you say no, not out of anger, but because you want peace. Real peace, not the fragile calm you once struggled to maintain. Those who've been deeply hurt often believe they must keep their hearts wide open to prove they are good. But eventually, you learn this. A heart without protection will only continue to be worn down. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors. You can open them for the right people, the right love, the right kindness, and you have the right to close them when you're not being respected. And strangely enough, when you begin setting boundaries, the real relationships stay. The ones that survived only because of your endurance quietly fade away. That isn't a loss. That's space. Space for your life to become lighter. This is how a soul once wounded learns to love again in a mature, clear way, no longer bound to the pain of the past. When someone grows up among emotional wreckage, they step into love with eyes that are both open and guarded. They want to love, but fear stands close behind them, reminding them that loving the wrong person can tear old wounds open again. So they love more gently, more carefully, sometimes too carefully, as if one wrong step could shatter their heart. Yet within that caution, you learn something essential. Love isn't about giving everything away. It's about giving consciously. Those raised in toxic families often mistake love for endurance, for unconditional sacrifice, for swallowing everything so others won't feel uncomfortable. But as you mature, you begin to understand that love isn't turning yourself into a shadow for someone else to lean on. Love is standing beside the person you care for with a full heart, not an empty one drained by the effort of trying not to upset them. I once heard a man say that in his early relationships, he always tried to be perfect, to listen, to yield, to shoulder every responsibility. The more he did that, the more he felt himself disappearing from his own life. One day, when his partner asked him, "What do you want?" he realized he had no answer. He had never considered his own needs. That moment became a turning point, because he understood that if he didn't know what he needed, he could never truly love someone deeply. You are the same. As you move beyond old patterns, you learn to love not through fear, but through understanding. You stop confusing chaos with passion, attachment with love, and blind sacrifice with sincerity. Mature love doesn't come from trying to change someone. It comes from being aware enough to choose someone who doesn't require you to lose yourself. Awakening in love isn't about finding the perfect person. It's about realizing you don't need to shrink yourself to keep someone. You don't have to monitor their emotions every minute. You don't have to study their face to see if you've done something wrong. When you meet the right person, you don't have to contract. You can breathe. You can speak honestly. You can be imperfect. And they don't leave. Learning to love again is a slow process. It begins when your heart is no longer being yanked backward by the past. You start seeing the person in front of you with present eyes. You stop reacting out of old wounds. You no longer panic at silence or fear small conflicts. You understand that love isn't about avoiding pain. It's about walking through pain together without running away. And one day, you realize something simple yet profound. You are loving with the heart of someone who has healed. No more inner battles. No more comparisons. No more questioning whether you're good enough. You love with clarity. You choose with awareness. You open your heart without losing yourself. When you learn how to love others and yourself in the right way, you understand that everything you've been through was guiding you towards something far more meaningful: inner freedom. At the end of this journey, you realize the most valuable thing isn't that you learned how to avoid pain. It's that you learned how to no longer fear it. Because once you truly understand your wounds, they stop controlling you. They no longer dictate how you love, how you react, how you trust. You step out from the long shadow your family unconsciously casts over your life. And for the first time, you feel real inner freedom, the kind you once believed you would never have. This freedom isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or grand moments. It comes when you sit alone and look back at the past without feeling pain. When someone raises their voice and your heart remains calm. When you think of childhood without being pulled back into old memories. That's when you know you've stepped out of the cycle. Not by forgetting, but by no longer being bound. Freedom also comes when you realize you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You no longer carry the responsibility of fixing what generations before you couldn't. You don't have to shoulder your parents' expectations. You rewrite your story through conscious choices, not inherited ones. Those choices are what break chains, not force, not resistance. I once heard someone say, "When I heal, I don't just save the child within me. I save the children who once existed in my family. The words are gentle, but the truth is undeniable. Each time you choose kindness over aggression, dialogue over silence, honesty over pretending to be strong, you rewrite how love is passed down in your family. You become a doorway into a different future, a future you once wished you had. And most importantly, you no longer live to avoid repeating the past. You live to create a present that feels worthy. You stop running from childhood shadows and begin walking by the light you generate yourself. You're grateful for what happened, not because it was beautiful, but because it showed you what is real, what belongs to you, and what should never return to your life again. Now, after all the long roads you've walked, the question is no longer, why did this happen to me? The question is, how will I live the rest of my life with what I've learned? So if today you look at yourself with maturity, with healing, with deep understanding, what do you think your soul is trying to tell you? And do you have the courage to listen? If this resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want me to continue developing healing content like this, follow the channel so we can walk this journey of returning to ourselves together.